Hey guys, I'm Patrick Mealey and this is MooMooDa. And today we're going to be doing the NFL tier list for 2025-26. I know all of you guys have been waiting for this. So, last time out, it was such a special season for me, such an amazing season, because my Eagles have won the Super Bowl in New Orleans by beating the Kansas City Chiefs 40-22. Man, it was one of my best days of my life. So I can't believe my Eagles won the Super Bowl for the second time in their history. Man, it was one of my best seasons of my life. And MooMooDa, in his first NFL season as a plush, was so lucky that the Eagles won the Super Bowl over the Chiefs. So, yeah, I'm so proud of my Eagles. And also the Bills. Well, in the AFC Championship, for the first time since the 2020-21 season, where MooMooDa was the Astro Challenger mascot at the time. Well, 4 years after making their first AFC Championship appearance since that time, well, the Bills narrowly lost to the Chiefs 32-29 in Kansas City. Man, that was so unfortunate for the Bills to lose like that. But you know, it is what it is. But we're going to move on to the NFL tier list to see who will be finishing, in my opinion, in the 2025-26 NFL season. So, MooMooDa, I'm going to leave you right here. And now, for the 2025-2026 NFL tier list, just like the last 2 years, we're going to start from the number one pick contention, and we're going to go all the way to Super Bowl favorites. So we're going to get started. So we're just going to start with the Jacksonville Jaguars. So the Jacksonville Jaguars had a horrible season last season. You know, Trevor Lawrence has been doing a lot. And I expect the Jaguars to improve at the highest time. So I think the Jaguars should definitely be something. So obviously, mediocre at best. So I'm gonna put the Jaguars. I'm gonna put the Jaguars at mediocre at best. You know, because sometimes the Jaguars have a lot of confidence, and you know, I don't think the Jaguars should be able to do it, but you never know. Okay, we're gonna move on to the Indianapolis Colts. So the Colts, not a bad season, but they had such a terrible season. But, you know, for the Colts, they know what to expect. They know what to expect. And Anthony Richardson and Daniel Jones as quarterbacks, and Jonathan Taylor. So, obviously, the Colts will be such a good team. And I'm going to put the Colts, maybe, to a potential wild card. Because, you know, the Colts might be just a potential wild card. You never know until the Colts reach the playoffs in the future or so. Who knows? Okay. We're going to go next to the Tennessee Titans. So the Tennessee Titans have got Cam Ward as the number one overall pick. So not only will the Titans be such a good team, but also I believe the Titans under Cam Ward should have a good season. So I might put Cam Ward and the Titans to a playoff team because, you know, obviously, you never know until Cam Ward does something. You know, just like Jaden Daniels last season when he led the Washington Commanders to the playoffs and go all the way to the NFC Championship game just to lose to my Eagles. Well, the Titans will be a different story in 2025. You know, obviously, the Titans will be a playoff team, and you never know until the Titans reach the playoffs. Okay, moving on to the Carolina Panthers. So, the Panthers, with Bryce Young in his first 2 seasons, missed the playoffs. Man, I can't believe how bad Bryce Young is. He usually plays well at college, but playing his first 2 seasons in Carolina and missing the playoffs is such a surprise. I thought Carolina would do well with Bryce Young. But, However, Bryce Young might be young, but he might be turning a lot. But I believe Carolina should be a missing playoff team because, despite the fact that the Panthers have Bryce Young, well, they have a chance to potentially go 8-8 or even 8-9. But you never know what Bryce Young's going to do this season. So, yeah. Okay, moving on to Dallas. So, Dallas last season was ugly. Ugly. But Dak Prescott and Dallas, they might do well. They might do well in, the previous seasons. But, obviously, Dallas proved everyone wrong despite a losing season. But I think Dallas have what it takes to finally wake up and do something. So I'm going to put Dallas at the playoff teams. So obviously I might have to put Dallas in a bigger way. Okay, next up we got the Cleveland Browns. So Deshaun Watson had a bad season with Cleveland despite his suspension last season, I believe. But Deshaun Watson came in to win some games for Cleveland, but the Browns had a bad season, especially with the Ravens and the Steelers. So I believe the Browns might be missing the playoffs. So fortunately, I'm going to put Cleveland at young but introducing because Cleveland already knows they're going to miss the playoffs this time. Okay, moving on to the New England Patriots. The New England Patriots, well, they have improved so much. Well, after their last regular season game with a win over the Bills, 23-16, well, the Patriots come into the offseason and has Matt Collins and Stephon Diggs, along with Drake May. The Patriots could be a Cinderella story, Might be on their way to a potential sun, but I don't think it's going to happen because of Josh Allen, the Bills. We'll get to that later. But the Patriots, however, will be a potential wild card. Because the Patriots already know what are all about. So, you never know what the Patriots are going to do. So, yeah. Okay, moving on to the Seattle Seahawks. So, the Seahawks just missed the playoffs, I think, in the last 2 years. So the Seahawks might sneak in with Sam Darnold. He is a Seahawk now. But I might call him Sam the Seahawk, but the Seahawks might be just that. But I'm going to put the Seahawks at the missing playoff teams. But Sam Darnold, he had a pretty good season with the Minnesota Vikings last season, and I believe the Seahawks should improve with Sam Darnold, so you never know. Okay, moving on, we got the New York Jets. So the New York Jets have got Justin Fields, so you probably want to know what the Jets can do. So the Jets, with Justin Fields, well, he might just do something with the Jets, and they might just see what they can do, so you can potentially know. But unfortunately, I'm going to put the Jets at young but introducing. Because the Jets sometimes have a lot of help, but unfortunately, I think they're going to miss the playoffs. So you never know. Okay, let's move on to Sheila's team, the Atlanta Falcons. So the Atlanta Falcons, wow, they were so close to making the playoffs, and they were so close to winning the NFC South, but the Buccaneers stole it at the end. And the Falcons, however, they must do something. They must do something to prove everyone wrong, and they must be a playoff team. So I'm going to put the Atlanta Falcons at the playoff team, because the Falcons must do something to make the playoffs. The Buccaneers are going to be a tough team to beat for the Falcons, but you'll never know. Okay, moving on to the Las Vegas Raiders. So, to me, what a quite surprise with Pete Carroll as the head coach and Geno Smith, I believe, as the quarterback for the Raiders, and Amari Cooper to the Las Vegas Raiders. Wow. The Raiders must be a playoff team right now, but I believe they might be just that, but I'm going to put the Raiders at the playoff team, because sometimes, the Raiders, well, they might do something, but it's a misfortune that they missed the playoffs, but I believe the Raiders should win something and make the playoffs. Okay, moving on to the Arizona Cardinals. So the Arizona Cardinals did not make it to the playoffs last year, but Kyler Murray did, however, improve just to make a statement. So Kyler Murray must do something to make the playoffs. In order to do that, he must have at least 6 or 7 wins in order to play in and make the playoffs. So I'm going to put Kyler Murray and the Cardinals to a potential wild card because, the Cardinals must do something to make the playoffs. Because if they don't and they have a losing season, losing 10 games or more, then that would be a shameful disagreement. Okay, moving on. We got the San Francisco 49ers. So the San Francisco 49ers surprisingly did not make the playoffs. So to me, it was a huge surprise. I thought the 49ers would make the playoffs, and go all the way to at least the NFC Championship game. But the 49ers, well, I think the 49ers must do something. So I'm going to put the 49ers in the playoff team, because, well, the 49ers must do something to make the playoffs. If they don't, then that'll be a big disagreement. Okay, moving on, we got the New Orleans Saints. So the New Orleans Saints, man, I believe it's Spencer Rattler, who is a starting quarterback, who will bring the Saints to a potential playoff spot, but I don't think it's going to happen, unfortunately. But I'm going to put the Saints at the number 1 pick contention, because despite the fact they have Spencer Rattler as their starting quarterback, the Saints will unfortunately have a losing season, and this will be unfortunate for the Saints to have a losing season and potentially go number 1 overall in 2026. Okay, moving on to the Chicago Bears. So the Chicago Bears, man, with Caleb Williams, man, they started 5-2, and all of a sudden, when I saw that Hail Mary moment for the Washington Commanders, for Jayden Daniels to Noah Brown, that shook the Bears suddenly collapsed after that moment. It was a shame that Caleb Williams and the Bears did not do well, but I believe the Bears have what it takes to reach their potential. So I am going to go for a potential wild card for the Bears, because obviously, the Bears might just do something. Well, it'll be fortunate if the Bears make the playoffs. Okay, moving on to the New York Giants. So Russell Wilson and Jackson Dart. Obviously, sometimes Jackson Dart will be something for the Giants in the future, but you never know. But Russell Wilson right now might be the starting quarterback, but you'll never know. Okay, I'm going to put the Giants at young but injured because, Russell Wilson and the Giants, along with Jackson Dart, well, they must do something. They must do something, potentially, but the Eagles might be too good. Okay, moving on, we have got the Miami Dolphins. So the Miami Dolphins with Tua Tagovailoa, well, it was so fortunate that the Dolphins came back, but fell short of the playoffs, but it was a good run by the Dolphins after starting with the losing season. Well, Tua Tagovailoa did something that no Dolphins quarterback has done before, but starting 3-0 2 times and making the playoffs, I believe, twice. It's such a good run for Tua Tagovailoa. But the Dolphins have what it takes to have something like that. So I'm going to put the Dolphins at a potential wild cards. Because Tua Tagovailoa must do something with the Dolphins, and he might potentially go to the playoffs. Who knows? Okay, moving on. We have got the last non-playoff team, the Cincinnati Bengals. So the Bengals must prove everyone that they're a Super Bowl contender. So, in my opinion, I might put Joe Burrow and the Bengals to a Super Bowl contender because you never know what the Bengals are going to do with Joe Burrow. Can he finally make the playoffs? Third time might be the charm, but he might be just that. Who knows? Okay, moving on to the Los Angeles Chargers. So the Chargers, with Jim Harbaugh as the coach and Justin Herbert, the Chargers did so good. So good. Obviously, the Chargers did amazing with that. And, obviously, the Chargers must have a lot. So, despite the fact that the Chargers are potentially going to be something, but I'm going to put the Chargers in the playoff team because you will never see a Charger team move like this ever again. But the Chargers could move to the playoffs, but you'll never know. Okay, moving on next, we have got the Pittsburgh Steelers. So the Pittsburgh Steelers usually are a good team, but with Aaron Rodgers in the Steelers, well, I might be expecting the Steelers to make a run to it, but I might have to put the Steelers at a potential wild card because, the Steelers, well, they must do something, man. They must do something in order to, make the playoffs. So you never know what Aaron Rodgers can do for the Steelers. Okay, moving on to the Denver Broncos. So the Denver Broncos, in fact, made the playoffs last season. So I feel happy for the Broncos, but they lost badly to the Bills 31-7. But you never know what the Broncos are going to do. But unfortunately, I'm going to put the Broncos at missing playoff teams because I don't think the Broncos should make the playoffs this year. Man, they're such a horrible, horrible team that barely made the playoffs. But you never know what Denver's going to do. Okay, moving on to the Green Bay Packers. So the Green Bay Packers have their potential to move the chains. So the Packers with Jordan Love, well, they have what it takes. But unfortunately, though, the Packers, they might go into the missing playoff teams because, the Packers might do good, but I think they'll fall short of the playoffs, but you never know. Okay, moving on. We have got the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Baker Mayfield did so good with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers in the last 2 seasons after Tom Brady retired. So you never know what the Buccaneers are going to do. So I believe the Buccaneers should be a Super Bowl contender. Despite the fact that Baker Mayfield did so good with the Buccaneers, I believe they should be a Super Bowl contender, but you'll never know. Okay, moving on. We have got the Minnesota Vikings. So with J.J. McCarthy as the starting quarterback for the Minnesota Vikings, I think the Vikings might be doing a lot. I think the Vikings might be a playoff team, so I'm going to put it in there. I'm going to put the Vikings as a playoff team because the Vikings could do something with J.J. McCarthy, but you'll never know what's going on with the Minnesota Vikings. Okay, moving on to the Houston Texans. Absolutely the Houston Texans with C.J. Stroud, absolutely phenomenal. But I believe the Texans should be a Super Bowl favorite, but you'll never know. But I'm going to put the Texans as one of the Super Bowl favorites, because they've actually never made the Super Bowl. And you'll never know what's going on with the Houston Texans. Okay, next team up is the Detroit Lions. So you'll never know what the Detroit Lions can do. So you can see they were the number 1 seed, 15-2 record. And guess you'll never know what the Lions can do. But fortunately, I'm going to put the Lions as Super Bowl favorites, because, the Lions might be the favorites to lift the Lombardi Trophy and bring it to the next level. But you'll never know what Jared Goff and the Lions can bring. So, yeah. Okay, moving on to the Los Angeles Rams. So the Rams, they've unexpectedly won the NFC West title. And I see the Rams as an unexpected favorite. So I might put the Rams as a Super Bowl contender because I think that the Rams might do well underneath with Matthew Stafford in front. So I believe that Stafford should be able to move forward. So you never know what's going on. Okay, moving on to the Ravens. With Lamar Jackson in the hunt, the Ravens might be just that. But with Lamar Jackson in the mix with the Ravens, you'll never know what the Ravens can do. So obviously, I might have to call the Ravens as a Super Bowl favorite. Because Baltimore might be just that. And I can see Baltimore as a Super Bowl favorite. And obviously, as what I'm expecting, if the Bills do not make it to the Super Bowl nor the Chiefs, I believe the Ravens should make it. Okay, moving on. We got the Final Four from last season. The Washington Commanders. So the Washington Commanders should be able to bounce back. They made it all the way to the NFC Championship game after making the playoffs for the first time in 4 seasons, I believe. But the Washington Commanders did so good last season, but I believe the Commanders should be able to go all the way to the Super Bowl, but I don't think it's going to happen as an Eagles fan. But I'm going to put the Commanders as a Super Bowl contender, because the Commanders have what it takes to win and get to at least the NFC Championship, but you'll never know what the Commanders can do. Okay, 3 teams left. We have got the Eagles. So my Eagles winning the Super Bowl is a big thing in my life. So obviously, you never know what the Eagles are going to do with Jalen Hurts, Devontae Smith, Saquon Barkley, A.J. Brown. Guess you'll never know what the Eagles can do, but I'm going to put the Eagles, obviously, as Super Bowl favorites. Because the Eagles might do something in terms of running and hopefully go back-to-back. You might want to tell that the Eagles should be Super Bowl favorites. But you'll never know. Okay. 2 teams left. We got the Kansas City Chiefs. So the Chiefs made it to the Super Bowl in the last 3 seasons. And you never know what the Chiefs will be doing. So obviously, the Chiefs might be doing with Patrick Mahomes and Travis Kelce. Well, Travis Kelce got engaged with Taylor Swift. So congratulations to Travis Kelce on his engagement with Taylor Swift. But the Chiefs will somehow be a Super Bowl favorite. Well, I might agree, but if Kansas City wins the Super Bowl like this season, I'll be so angry. But you'll never know. Okay, and the last team remaining is the Buffalo Bills. So the Buffalo Bills, Mike and Gabe, well, they're supporting the Buffalo Bills, as well as Hosa Mwasa in their first season in the NFL. Mike and Gabe are big Bills fans, so Hosa Mwasa will join the Bills in more than a week from now, and you never know what the Bills can do, so the Bills will be Super Bowl favorites, obviously, because the Bills will try to become Super Bowl champions for the first time, and guess you'll never know what the Bills can do. Okay, so there you have it. So this is the tier list for 2025-26. Super Bowl favorites: Eagles, Bills, Chiefs, Lions, Ravens, Texans. Super Bowl contenders: Buccaneers, Rams, and Commanders. Playoff teams: Titans, Dallas, Falcons, Raiders, 49ers, Chargers, and Vikings. Potential wildcards: Colts, Patriots, Cardinals, Bears, Dolphins, Steelers. Missing playoff teams: Panthers, Seahawks, Broncos, and Packers. And mediocre at best: Jaguars, young but intriguing, Browns, Jets, and Giants. And number 1 pick contention: Saints. Okay, guys, that is going to do it for my NFL tier list for 2025-26 video. So you will never know what the winner's going to be. Stay tuned because next up will be my NFL season prediction for 2025-26. So stay tuned. Okay, anyway, if you enjoyed this video, please consider subscribing, liking, and commenting, and I'll talk to you again for the next video. Bye-bye!